Now that we've taken this lead through the process here and we want to put it to in estimating, we've got the lead to a point where our plans are done, our engineering, and we want to estimate the job. And now that we've got the lead here in estimating, I can create an estimate. So if we go ahead, I can click add estimate, give the estimate a name. So new home, Mrs. Smith, project type, and we can create the estimate from a template. So we can set up your own custom templates for you when you're on board with your account manager, or we can provide you with some templates, or if you've got your own pre-existing templates, we can import those for you. So if we select a template here that we've got in the system, create estimate, it's going to generate that estimate and pre-fill it here against the lead. So now you can see that we've created an estimate here and we've got all of our cost categories listed here from our estimate template. So what we can do now is work our way through the estimate and put in our pricing and quantities. If we navigated to, say, crane hire, we can see here that we've got a single story crane hire allowance, and we can actually choose against that item to put in someone that does our cranes. We have an auto purchase order function. You won't have to create the purchase orders manually. It'll automatically create the purchase order against that item. Now we can change the quantity here of how many items we want for the price, and we can set a custom markup against that line item there. We can also choose against each of the items to build a specification out. So if we went down to roofing, we can see the first item that we've got here, Colorbond roofing in builder standard range. We can click included here. And that just means that if we navigate to our specifications and roofing, that item is going to have included Colorbond roofing in standard Colorbond. Now, if we go back to that item and we're unsure about the price and we want to do it as a PC sum for the client or an allowance, what we can do is click allowance here, put the amount of what we want the allowance to be. So we'll just click that button there. If we now navigate back to the specifications and roofing, you can see here it's put that allowance amount and kept that description. So it's nice and clear to your client that you have made an allowance and what that amount is for. If we want to do a takeoff for a set of plans, I'll quickly demonstrate how you can do that as well. Let's say we wanted to take off the roofing area. We did in fact know what the price was going to be and we weren't going to do an allowance. If we go down to roofing per meter squared, we can do a takeoff directly from here. So if we click on the quantity and the little triangle here, it'll take us to a takeoff interface and we click the new file. So I've loaded in a set of plans and it's processing here and it's asked us to set a scale on these plans. So I'll put that as 1 in 100 and then we need to draw a common measurement here. We'll go 6/450 and set scale. Now that set of plans is scaled, ready to go. If we use our polygon tool here, we can measure this roof area, which once we finish that takeoff, will feed directly back into our costings. So we can see that's 150 square meters, click done. That has now fed that 150 square meters straight back into our takeoff so that we can see that they came directly from that takeoff. There is another way to do that. Now that we've done that takeoff, we can actually unlink that. You click the quantity in the calculator, we can enter formulas, custom formulas. So you might actually want to add the roofing area plus a percentage or plus another takeoff. So say you wanted to add in some wastage. So we're going to go at roof, select that takeoff, times by 0.3. You can see that that has gone the roof area times by 0.3 plus at the roof area. And that brings up that total with the 30% wastage. Save. And now we can see we've got the little calculator tool there. So it's quite powerful, the takeoff tool. If you want to use the calculator as well, you can get really into some pretty cool formulas. Another way that you can do formulas is if you have predefined takeoffs that you would do every time that you do a job, you can template those in your estimate. So we could say external wall meters squared. Now, if we do that takeoff here, I'll go length, and we do this takeoff here, enter the height of that wall, so 2700. Now we could actually set up in our estimating template that item there was linked to 10 different costing items. So if we go down to our brickwork and the square meterage of our brickwork, formula at external wall per square meter, and then that would have driven that takeoff there. So we could have had that one takeoff linked to 30 different costing items. Or let's say you wanted to do a quick down and dirty estimate and it's based on different square meterage of the home. So you could have literally in here the external wall of the square meterage of the house, the roof area, and then you might have wet area meters squared. So if we then did the roof area here, again, that could link to multiple different cost items for you to do a quick estimate. and you could just do those 3 takeoffs, drive the whole estimate here, and it could even link to crane hire. So you could say that per the square meterage of the home, so at roof area divided by every 50 square meters of the home, you want 1 crane. Save. So that's going to give us 2.96 crane lifts. Then what you can do is on the settings cog here is say minimum buy quantity is 1, and it's always going to increase by 1. So it's going to round it up to 3. So you can get right into your formulas, your takeoffs, to really speed up your estimating process. Another cool feature that we have is our estimating checklist. So this can all be templated from within your estimate template, but whilst you're working through your estimate, you could have a predefined checklist. We could set that, are there fly screens included? Check energy report, so on and so forth. You could have a list of checklist items that you always want to complete on Windows. So you can navigate into that as you're estimating, check one off, and then you can see we've checked 1 of 2 off. Check the second one off, change this to complete, and then you'll see that this goes green, and we know that we've dealt with the estimating on that particular cost category. Let's say we want to get some requests for quotes out to some trades to get some pricing back. What we can do is navigate to the cost category that we want to do that. So let's say we want to go to electrical and we want to get a quote from our contractor. We can select all the items that we want to get a quote from our contractor and click request for quote down here. Give the quote a name, electrical, who to reply to, select your own details, the due date, create request for quote. So this is creating a package with the items that you want the contractor to quote on. You can put a custom message in here up the top, change the due date, and then navigate down the bottom and start adding companies. So we can add 2 electrical companies here. And a neat trick is you can also add more email addresses if there's more than one person that works for that company within this little drop down list here. Then what we can do is include the project specifications. So if we click edit selection here, all the specifications that we have on our estimate that you essentially we're going to send to your client, you could send them to the trade so they're going to quote on the right thing. So we can unselect all of them and only choose to send electrical. And then the electrician knows exactly what we're going to quote on. We can then drag and drop any attachments that you might have that you want to send to them, the plans, the engineering, and then click send. And that will send that quote request out to those trades and change the status to sent. Once the quote has come back from your contractors or suppliers, you can go into their quote request, put any notes and response items here, and then you can put in what their price was. So if we navigate through here, and then what we can go is approve quote. And that will send that directly back to the budget. So if we go back to our costings now and down to electrical, we'll be able to see that all of these items here are locked because they have a request for quote. And even the really neat part about that is you can see because that request for quote that was accepted with some MJS electrical, that has pre-filled them as the contractor. Again, when we create a job later on, that'll mean that we have to click one item, auto create purchase order, and it'll add all of those items onto one purchase order to that contractor to save you time in your job setup. We can adjust the markup on our estimate. So up the top here, we've got a little markup and a pencil icon. We can change the global markup to a different percentage if we want to, and that will add that to every single item through here. We can also put more markup above that 30% on individual items, and that just means that if there's some stuff you want to charge a little bit more for, you have got that flexibility. Let's say we want to send a proposal off to the client now. We can click create proposal and choose a template, or we can choose to create the proposal from blank. I'll choose to create it from blank for now. We can see here we've got the recipient that we're going to send this proposal to. Our site details already filled in. We'd only had to enter that once. And then who we're going to send it to, the client. So now it'll pre-fill the client details here. So what we can do is give the document an expiry, 90 days, and then we can choose to add some attachments here. So if there's some plans or a brochure that you like to send with your proposals, and then the estimate itself. So what we can do here is work through this checkbox of what we want to show from our estimate here on the proposal. So we can click include specifications, and then all the items that we clicked included or allowance or excluded on will show up under the category name and then the item and what they are, so that you can give a detailed, broken down professional proposal right directly to your client to make it really clear what it is that you've actually costed for them. And then if we navigate down the bottom here, we can see the total price that you've quoted the client. And then from here, you can click save, and then you can send this off for signing and they'll get a digital link and they can sign that and approve that. Another thing that you can do is create options for them. So let's say you've sent this to the client and the client says, I want it cheaper, I want some more options, I want to add lots of stuff. As clients do, we have a feature in Jack called cost options. So if we navigate back to the estimate now, we can jump into the estimate here and we can create a cost option. So if we click cost options here, we can start adding options for the client. So let's say they wanted to add a ceiling fan. You can categorize that cost option under electrical and we'll click create cost option. So within here, we want to create our cost category and the costings within it. So let's say ceiling fan, we know that's going to be $500. We want to put 20% on it and we click save and release. That won't send it to the client, but what it will do is create on our document that we've got here in draft, our proposal, we can go to the estimate here and include cost options. So now on this document, we can see a list of any options that we've added for the client, what the price would be and the status. So when we send this off across to the client, they'll be able to jump in here, change the status of that item, and they'll be able to see the approved options. So I'll show you a live example of that. So we can see here that this is the link that the client got sent, and they can go through their proposal that you've made to them, read all their specifications, and then when they get down to the bottom, they can see their total price and then a list of options that you've created. So that add a ceiling fan option, if they want to decline that, they can. It doesn't affect their total adjusted price. But let's say they did want to add that ceiling fan, you can click approved. They can see their approved options totaling $660. They may have had 20 options. It doesn't matter how many options you have. Then they can see the total adjusted price of what their contract's going to be, and then they can sign this and it will lock in that costing to the job. So I'll quickly show you what that does to the estimate. So now we can see in our cost options tab, approved $660 for the ceiling fan. And if we navigate back to our estimate, the really neat part about that is it sent that accepted cost option back to the estimate with the amount and the description. So you can see that's the accepted option. It's adjusted what the contract price should be and added the markup to your estimate. So this just means that when you got all that back and forth with the owner, you're trying to negotiate a contract, there's 100 different options and you give those to the owner. As soon as they click approved, you can get to the contract quickly, know that your numbers are accurate with what you've estimated. There's no lost this version of that quote, that version of this quote. It's really simple, really clear, really easy for you to understand your position when you sign that contract. So the clients accepted the cost options, I've accepted the quote, let's turn it into a job. So if we click create job, we can choose a fixed price, cost plus or percentage complete. I'll choose fixed price, and then we can choose a job template. So your job template can have all your schedules, your preset progress claims, your files and folder structure, your selections, and then we click create job. Now it's going to convert the estimate into a job, and now you can start tracking your finances, scheduling, sending variations to the client. So now we can see that there is a job financials tab here, and we can jump into our budget. So we can see at the top of our budget here what we're expecting to spend, what we have spent and what's remaining. And then we have our starting forecasted profit. So you can always see what you were making when you signed the contract and then where that current forecasted profit is. And you can toggle these numbers here so that it shows as a percentage being markup or margin, depending on what you work at.